I hope you recognize when you were working these first 6 problems that you needed to finish the triangle using the Pythagorean theorem. So let's do that first. So the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we square 36, we add the square of 15 to that, and then we take the square root. So we end up with c equals 39. So now we have all 3 sides, and so we can use any one of these trigonometric functions to find the ratios that they're looking for. So the sine of r is opposite over hypotenuse. So we just found the hypotenuse, so we can say that the sine of r is 15 divided by 39. And we're going to do that fraction in the simplest form. I don't think we can do anything. Well, no, actually we can. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 goes into 39 13 times. So we have 5/13. The cosine of r is adjacent over hypotenuse. So in that case, we have 36 divided by 39. And again, 3 goes into 36 and it goes into 39, so we'll end up having 12 divided by 13 for number 2. The tangent of r is opposite over adjacent, so this time we're going to have 15 divided by 39. So 15 divided by 36. Again, 3 goes into each one of those, so we have 5 divided by 12 is the answer to that problem. Now we're focusing on the angle T. So the sine of T is opposite over hypotenuse, so it'll be 36 divided by 39. So we get 12 divided by 13 for that particular ratio. Number 5, we have the cosine of t, so we'll need the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse, and that'll be 15 divided by 39. And then finally we have the tan of t, which is opposite over adjacent, so 36 divided by 15. And so we have our last ratio, so that will be 12 divided by 5. In these next few problems, I'm just going to do the odd ones just to remind you how to do them, and I'll give you the answers to the other ones. So number 7, we have to look to what's given. We've been given the angle and we've been given the hypotenuse, and we're looking for the adjacent side. So we'll have to use the cosine function. So we'll do the cosine of 38 degrees, and that's going to equal the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and the adjacent is x and the hypotenuse is 21. So now to get x by itself, we have to multiply both sides by 21, and so when we do that, we have 21 times the cosine of 38 degrees. That should be a little degrees sign. So we're going to just use our calculators to figure this out, because even though it has a value, it's hard to memorize those values. So we'll just get the answer, 16.5. Number 9, we've been given the angle and the adjacent side, and we're looking for the opposite side. So we have adjacent and opposite, which means we're going to use the tangent function. So this is the equation that we would write. Tangent of 57 degrees equals the opposite, which is x, divided by the adjacent, which is 6. So now to get x by itself, we're going to multiply both sides by 6. And so when we do that, we just get something that we can put into our calculator and get the answer, because we're just going to find the tangent of 57 degrees and multiply it by 6 to get x. And that's 9.2. Number 11, we've been given the opposite and the hypotenuse, but not the angle. We're looking for the angle. So remember, whenever we're looking for the angle, we have to use the inverse functions. So the opposite and the hypotenuse tell us that we're going to use the sine function, only we have to use the inverse sign. So we're going to do the sine inverse of the opposite, which is 15, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 23. Sorry, that doesn't look very much like an inverse. So when and that will give us x. So when we put that into our calculator, we get 40.7 degrees, because this time we're looking for an angle length. Here are the answers to the even ones, so just check your answers, and you can leave the video, turn it off, and record your work if you don't have the right answer. Okay, so 13 is also using the trigonometric functions, so this time we have to use the inverse function, and we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so we're going to use the cosine inverse. So cosine inverse of the adjacent, which is 16, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 27, and that will give us x. So when we use the calculator, we get x equals 53.7 degrees. Number 15, we should recognize as a special triangle, a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And so we have to remember that relationship. So here's the relationship that we learned previously on a 30, 60 triangle, in that the short leg is labeled a, the long leg is a square roots of 3, and the hypotenuse is 2a. So if we know that the short leg is a, and the long leg is a square roots of 3, we can find y because it's just a square roots of 3. And we can recognize square root of 5 as being a because it's the short leg. So to find y, we're simply going to take a and multiply it by the square root of 3. And we know that we can take square roots and multiply their radicands. So for y, we just get the square root of 15. For the hypotenuse is just 2 times a, and since a is the square root of 5, the hypotenuse, or x, is simply just going to be 2 times the square root of 5. So a 45-45 triangle, which is what we have in problem 17, is represented by a on the two legs that are the same size, because it's an isosceles, and then the hypotenuse is a square roots of 2. So when we look at our triangle that we've been given, we notice that one of our legs is 3 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. So that means our other leg is going to be the same value. So B is just going to be 3 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. Now A is just, the hypotenuse is just A times the square root of 2. And in this case, we have a variable A, and it represents the hypotenuse, so we're going to take that, we're going to take the value of the leg and multiply it by the square root of 2. So when we do that, we have 3 square roots of 2 times the square root of 2, all divided by 2. Now, square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just going to give us the square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is actually just 2. And so since we can rewrite that as being a 2, we have 3 times 2 all divided by 2. Well, the 2's divide out, so we end up with A equals 3. So 19 is also a 45-45, so we can keep the same relationship there in that blue triangle so that we can review it. So our two legs have the same value. We've already been given one leg. So y is just going to be the same value, which is 5 square roots of 2 divided by 2. Now the hypotenuse is just the leg times the square root of 2. So the leg is 5 square roots of 2 divided by 2, all times the square root of 2. And so remember that square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is just 2. So we have 5 times 2, all divided by 2. Well, the 2's divide out, so we're just left with 5. Here are the answers for 14 and 16. You can certainly stop the video and record these answers in case you got yours incorrect. And then finally, here's 18 and 20.